the more I wrote, the better I seemed to get at it. And I didn't need to know how it was going to turn out. It was just one piece of the pie that I did every week. And it was my creative piece that really gave me life. And I love my teaching, but this really set me afire.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Hi, and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick Nusky, and do I have somebody very special on the line with us today? We've got the wonderful Jennifer Benson. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm great. Thank you, Rick. How are you?
I'm exceptionally well. I always like to say I have
Great.
2 feet and a heartbeat, and I have nothing to complain about. But Jennifer, you have an incredible story to share with the My Future Business audience. Now, there was a time in my own life, I have to say, that I was lacking direction, and I think we all go through this. And on this call today, for everybody's with us, we're going to be unpacking Jennifer's life in terms of looking at her, what she fondly terms her inner Dean. But just so you know, Jennifer is also the author of her memoir, Beautiful Possibilities, and we're going to take a deep dive into that. But before we go into the core of the call, Jennifer, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your rich life, your experience thus far. Would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself with the My Future Business audience?
I'd love to, Rick. I am not only a writer, and we're working on my memoir for the last 4 years, but I am an English as a second language teacher in New York State, upstate New York. I'm more of a country girl.
Yep.
And back in about 2002, I decided to take the leap, listen to my inner ding and my inner voice, and teach in an international school over in Kuwait. My sister was already over there teaching, and there was an opening, and I just thought, you know what, life was pretty stagnant back then, and I think I needed to shake things up a little bit. And fortunately, everything worked out so that I could take the leap. I looked for the signs and followed that inner voice and took that massive leap into a brand new life abroad. And then about in 2014, I moved back home again.
Oh, okay. So you're currently in upstate New
Yeah.
York, is that correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. Now, what was the
Yes.
what was the second language?
Second language over in Kuwait.
Yes. No, in terms
Yeah,
of
it was Arab.
yeah, it's Arabic.
Yeah.
Is that what you said here that you're an English and as a second language teacher? Is that what you?
Yeah.
Right, fantastic. How did you find
Yeah.
the culture over in the Middle East?
Well, I found it exciting for the longest time. I think it really resonated with me just because of the adventure of it. And at times, I think it was challenging I think you have to kind of conform a little bit to a new religion and a new country. And at times you might feel invisible. But at other times, I was teaching at a school with over kids from over 20 different countries. So we had lots of different languages. And I like the open-mindedness of the children that I taught, and I like the open-mindedness of the teachers that I worked with, and they were from mainly United States and Canada. So I think there was a lot of positives with it, and it really changed the way that I view life as well. So, but I think, one thing about Kuwait as well is that it's really tied to the Islamic religion. So there
Hmm.
was a lot of learning about that, and especially during Ramadan and customs and what you were allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do, how you needed to dress and to be respectful. And you might not be able to always, do what you want to do or wear what you want to wear. But for me, I was okay with it because I enjoyed my time over there so much that I just looked at it as, well, I guess it's something that I have to do, to stay here.
Yes, fantastic. I
Yeah.
know that you've done some work with the United States Embassy. What was that like?
Well, yeah, they contacted me. We had a teacher liaison at Qatar Academy where I worked during my last couple years working over abroad in Qatar, and they contacted me about training um, public school teachers, because I was at a private international school, and there was a need in Qatar to train public school teachers on in different areas of education. So you could sign up for one area that you really wanted to use for your training and how to train them. So I was able to teach them in a couple different areas, and it was quite enjoyable. And I love doing professional development. So, but yeah, and at the end, they give you this nice certificate, and it was really fabulous, and it was an honor to be, selected to do something like that. And it was affiliated, like I said, more with my school, and just
Yeah.
trying to finding teachers that were willing to do that professional development.
You know,
So it was great.
it's interesting because you've obviously travelled abroad quite a bit. You've been involved with NISA educational organisations in Thailand and Greece. What was that like? Was this just an extension of the previous work you had done, or was it much different?
That was when I was in Kuwait, and they also had that in Qatar as well. But when I
Hmm.
was in Kuwait, I actually was chosen there to present different workshops. So I think there was 3 teachers every year that were selected to go. And the school was really great about funding your trip, and you were representing the school. So you were able to go to these countries wherever, every year it was different about, where it was located, this big spring workshop. So I was lucky in that one year I was at Thailand, and another year it was at Athens, Greece. So you just go there and you get to present, and the school paid for your housing and for your registration, which was great. And the nice thing about it, it was over spring break, but there was this nice buzz of working with educators and doing something that you're passionate about. And you didn't even care that you gave up your spring break because I'm in Thailand. This is great. And I
Yeah.
get to work with educators and doing things that I love. And we get to talk to each other about where the great schools are overseas and what your school's like, what my school's like. And there's just like that buzz. And I really love
Yes.
that about working overseas.
Talking about a buzz, you clearly have a great level of energy about you. I'd love to know now, when we talk about our life's journey, sometimes we don't have this direction, and you took a blind leap of faith essentially at some point in your life. This is obviously tied back to the memoir that you wrote, Beautiful Possibilities. Can we go back, I guess, to a point in time where you were lacking that direction and maybe help us understand how this memoir came about?
Sure. Well, the first point was I was working in upstate New York teaching, and I liked it, but I kind of felt something was missing. And my sister, since she was already in Kuwait teaching, she would send home postcards and these trips to Dubai and these dinners under the stars and these beautiful colored tents and getting henna on her arm, applied on
Yep.
her arm. And I'm like, this is really something. And then I kind of got thinking about my life, and I'm like, wow, what if, I were to do something like that? And then I kind of like just kind of tucked that away. And I'm like, well, now it's not the time. And I had a 10-year relationship with a college boyfriend. And
Hmm.
quite frankly, I guess, 10 years, it really wasn't going anywhere. So then, there happened to be, within a few months of my sister being over there was an opening. And she got a hold of me and she said, Jen, there's an opening for both the English as a second language, both in the elementary and in the middle school. And if you're interested, I could pass your resume along to our superintendent. That's kind of how things work over there.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know about that. And I gave it some thought, and then I'm like, you know what, let's just go for it and just see. And I think what really gave me the green light, of course, I was, following my inner voice, and I look for these green lights, and I'm like, okay, universe, if you want me to do this, you have to show me some signs that it's the right leap. It's the right path to take right now, because I had that long-term boyfriend, and I just got hired at another teaching school, and it was a great school. So I think somehow along the line, the idea came into my head, like, why don't you just ask for a sabbatical, like a 1-year leave from your school, and just see what they say? Because the
Yeah.
contract in Kuwait was for 2 years, but the superintendent was willing to give me 1 year. So there was another green light. So I asked my school in upstate New York. They had to go to the Board of Education, but I got approved for it. And I think that was the final green light. And I'm like, okay, I can come back to my job after a year if I don't like it. I think I was pretty covered, and it made me feel more secure about taking that leap. I needed that security, I think.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. We tend to get comfortable in our lives, don't we, in our safe spaces, and we forget that this is not life is not a dress rehearsal. We only get one crack at this, And you know
Yeah.
that the last thing you want to do is leave this earth with a pile of regret. Was How was it that moment that you got on that plane and you went to that new place? What was your sense of adventure like? How did you feel at the time?
I was a little bit scared because my sister, I was going over with the newbie teacher, the new teacher, so I would be there a week in Kuwait without my sister, and then she would join us the following week. So that first week, I was really scared because Misty wouldn't have been there, but at the same time, there was never that thought when I was on that plane ride. I had to fly from Syracuse to Washington, D.C. to Frankfurt and then over to Kuwait, and there was never a time where I'm like, I don't think I should have done this. And I think that was very helpful. I'm just like, I guess I just got to go. I'm already on the plane. I have to keep going, and I met some people in Frankfurt because we had to wear a badge saying, our school names so we could kind of find each other. So
Yes.
I think you meet up with a couple people and I think you're like, like, I have to keep going forward. There's no going back. And I think if I had gone backwards, that would have been worse. And that was another feeling that I was looking at before I went overseas. Should I stay or should I go? The feeling of staying behind was more suffocating than it was to take that leap. So
This
there was
is
no, definitely no going back.
this is an
Yeah.
inspirational story because I know a lot of people just don't get into that first gear, get out the door,
Yeah.
take that first step, and then the next, then the next. They think too much about making these decisions where you've just got these green lights and you've gone for it. It's wonderful. What's
Oh,
happened since then? And in terms of your book work, are you still writing?
well, yeah, I'm all done with the book. I had it content edited this summer and I recently just started getting it sent out to agents. So, and it's just been very recently that I had to get my proposal together and everything. But the funny thing about it is I've already had I think about 6 interviews for it. So those are really good signs, more, green lights from the universe that I'm on the right pathway. And I just know that it will go where the universe wants it to go. So I'm not really too worried about it. But I had been working on it for the last 4 years. I've been teaching full time. So trying to get that, how that works. But yeah, so I know that something will happen with it. I don't know what, but I know something will happen.
You're just trusting your gut, and your intuition is telling you
Yeah.
all lights are green, so it's a wonderful thing. Now, I'd like to unpack, I guess, the journey as an author. You mentioned 4 years. That's quite a long time, but I guess in a memoir sense, it maybe isn't. Did you find that, I guess, that writing process difficult, or did it come naturally for you?
You know, Rick, actually, you start this thing out, and I was looking at my journal articles that I wrote from overseas, especially in the last few years. The last few years when I was in Qatar, it just never felt right. And I knew I needed to come back home. And I finally took that leap back home again. And I kept my journal articles and I was looking at them. I'm like, I'm just going to start writing something. And I don't know the big picture yet. I didn't even know it was going to be a memoir, but I started writing a little bit more detailed about, okay, what if I talked about this journey, about how I decided to go overseas, what that life was like as an expat and a woman, and then that decision to come back home again. So what if I wrote about it? So I think you take this journey on about, writing. The more I wrote, the better I seemed to get at it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't need to know how it was going to turn out. It was just one piece of the pie that I did every week. And it was my creative piece that really kind of gave me life. It was, my livelihood. And, I love my teaching, but this really set me afire. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't even have to know where it was going to go or lead to. If I could do 10 minutes a day or an hour a day or 2 hours or 3 hours on the weekend, but I just showed up
Yep.
and I did a little bit at a time. And then it goes where it needs to go. And then you get better and better at the writing. I think you're in this co-partnership with the universe where they're like, okay, let's do this. You're into this. You're showing up every day. Let's do it.
I know that we have a range of different listeners. We have we have business owners, entrepreneurs, and aspiring book authors. Did you find that you needed help in terms of the final editing and actually making it come together? What was that side of the book process like?
Yeah, I did two different things. I joined a group called Quantum Leap, which is actually out of Pennsylvania. And it's Jack Canfield who wrote all the Chicken Soup for the Soul
Of
books. It's
course.
his marketing. his marketing firm, I guess, or whatever you want to say. So they take you on for a year and they'd help you market it and publish.
Mm.
But at the same time, they never really talked about content editing. So, and going through and really making sure that things sound right and make sense. So I hired my old high school English teacher who had published 3 books. She went through my whole book this summer and everything, and she left everything in black ink on my on the computer. I guess my Microsoft Word copy that was fine. The text that was in black was fine. The stuff that she highlighted in green needed more conversation, more dialogue, more showing, and then the stuff in blue that she highlighted was wow, this is great. So it just took me a long time to go through all that and add more dialogue. So what started off as 300 pages ended up being over 380
Wow.
because I had to add in all that dialogue. But I guess it's just a long story. It covers 14 years. And I guess there was more to say than I thought.
Yes, of course, and all worthy of being in there, no doubt. Now, you're on a mission to help anyone who needs a push in their life. You know, they've lost that direction. They have certain fears that are holding them back. You took this leap of faith. Now, what do you say to people who are locked away and they're I guess, in their jail of the mind, if you like, and they're not willing to make that decision? What is the catalyst that you would share with them to make them take that first step?
Yeah, I think the first thing is there's an awareness that that you want something more or something different in life. And then I kind of handed it over to universe and I say, okay, I'm feeling these things. I'm curious about something. I'm interested about something. Show me what the next step is. Maybe show me the signs. And the signs tend to come up when it's right. And don't be afraid of one thing about myself, I did not know how this whole thing was going to play out. Going to the Middle East was never the vision that I had for myself when I was in high school or college or throughout my 20s. I didn't go over there until I was 31.
Yeah.
So it just was never part of the vision I had for myself. But at the same time, I took the leap and I did not worry about how long am I going to be over here? What's it going to look like? Do I need to know everything that's going to happen ahead of time? No, I just kind of went along and handled it as I went. And I think that was the key. You don't need to have, and just like with my memoir as well, you don't need to have it all figured out. You get curious about something and you ask the universe to show you more signs or to take what step do I need to take next. And it seems to come about. And the universe has a way of showing you, and then you get deeper into it, and more pathways seem to, pop up and like I said, you don't need to have the whole picture. You just start. You just kind of, I always use this term, chip away at it.
Yes.
I was chipping away at this book. And when I say chip away at it, there's no pressure because I didn't know where it was going to go. I didn't even know it was going to be a book at the time, but it was something I dabbled in because I wanted that creativity piece in my life. Or, you might want something different or a job change or a career change. And I just kind of got curious about what I wanted to do and I asked for the signs and I looked for the green lights. Once I asked for the signs, I looked for those coincidences, those, the green lights, the thumbs up, just to kind of show me. And then, you know,
There's a little bit of life by design, but there's also a little bit of allowing the universe to bounce you around a little bit. Is there a balance between the
yeah.
two, do you think?
I think so, like sometimes, you might even think you're doing the wrong thing. When I first came home, I met my ex-husband David overseas. He took my sister's job over when she was teaching middle school French, and
Hmm.
David and I were together for over 10 years overseas. And we were married. And it got to that point where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I need to go back home again. And that was into my 14th year. And he's like, well, I need to stay overseas.
Hmm.
So then I had to take that leap back home. And I knew what a sacrifice it was. And I knew that there might be loss involved. And we tried to make a long distance thing work out, but it just didn't after a
Just
couple of
didn't.
years. But at
Yeah.
the same time, you're filled at times, and it's natural to have fear and to know that, oh my gosh, I might lose David over this. I'm going to have to sacrifice some things. But I think part of that is propelling you into something that's a better fit for you and a better way of life for you because ultimately I'm happier than I've ever been. As much as I love my overseas, it just kind of wore itself out and I changed. My perspectives changed and my values changed and I wanted to be back home again with family. But there might be times when you feel like and you second guess yourself and because it's hard or because it's challenging, but that doesn't mean you're on the wrong track. I know with me, I just had to wait it out and just see. And and I could always change course down the road if I really, really felt it. But I think I needed to give it that time that it deserved,
There's some
you
sage
know?
advice in there. Just resetting each and every day. You've talked about some of the life challenges that you've faced, but one of the most significant that at least I see through your bio is the 2004 tsunami. Were you there, and what was that like? I can only imagine.
Yeah, well, David and I were there that morning. The previous few mornings we were in Raleigh, which is off from Krabi in southern Thailand, and we had gone out kayaking to these little tiny pieces of, I don't know,
Oh,
like rocks out in the water. But the day of the tsunami, the 26th, I believe it was, we had gotten up late, thank goodness, because we're early risers. And we got down to the beach. Everyone was looking out. We were getting ready to have breakfast, and David took off to go visit a dive shop, and then people were just headed down. I thought there was a beached animal or something. I'm like, what is going on? The water had receded back. The water receded back, and it was building this wall, and nobody knew what it was. So people were really going far out there, out into where the boats and stuff were beached, and just trying to scratch their head, wondering what it was. But I looked behind me and I heard some Thai waitresses crying. Like I knew something was not right. And you get these little hints and these little clues once again. And finally, one of the first waves, I think there was like three of them that were really
mm-hmm.
big. We hadn't known there was an earthquake. No one knew. So the first wave came in, and a dive instructor was down there on the beach, and she finally came out of her little shop and she said, run, you got
Run.
to run, you got to
Oh
get out of here.
my.
She was the only one that recognized it. I never would have, because in upstate New York we just don't have those things. And
No.
it's just I was not familiar with it. And so people did start to run, but yeah, nobody knew. And luckily we ran up to higher ground where our hotel was, so we kind of already knew the pathway. But
Yep.
we lived through that. But like if it wasn't for her,
Oh.
I don't know if we would have been around. And the strange thing was too, once we got back to Kuwait, we actually went on a television show there called Starting Over, because one of David's students at school, his father, it's how these schools are. My father owned, so we went on the show to talk about it. But yeah, and I don't think I've ever really quite gotten over it. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, did I go through that? Yeah, I guess
Oh.
I went through that.
It's a dream, isn't it? And you know what? I believe that there are angels walking this earth, and this particular one came your way that day. Now, in
Yeah.
terms of the Beautiful Possibilities memoir, I'd love to unpack that a little more in terms of I guess, your highlights in that work. What are some of the stories in there that you share that really stick out for you?
I think that first year in in Kuwait was a big one. That was a year that I was with my sister, and we traveled together for the first time. We went to Thailand and Cambodia, and that was a big deal. But also, right when we got back after Christmas, the whole Gulf War thing started
Oh, yes.
happening again. So right at that point, we were afraid of Iraq invading, and so the school was trying to figure out where to send all of its teachers, because there came a point where the American embassy said you need to leave. So they were thinking about shipping us all off to Sri Lanka, but we actually got sent back home to our point of origin. So we came back to upstate New York, and just going through that whole thing, and wondering if you're ever going to go back to Kuwait again. A lot of teachers quit.
Yeah.
Even our principal quit, and finally, I think after about a couple months, one of the malls had gotten hit with a silkworm missile. And I think 2 days later, the school's like, okay, everybody back. It's fine.
Uh,
And we're like, oh, okay. So of course my parents did not want their daughters going back over there, but Missy and I didn't really have a choice. I had decided to return to Kuwait in the fall. I knew I had to go back. And if we didn't go back, we wouldn't have gotten paid through the end of the year, and into the summer. So it's kind of
mm-hmm.
financial. It's crazy as it sounds. I felt like if we didn't go back, not that it would be failure, but I just didn't feel right about it. And I felt better going than that. But there was that chapter that I think was pretty powerful. And of course, the tsunami chapter was pretty powerful, but just about meeting different people, meeting my husband over there and what that life was like being over there with somebody and living and being married. And also, I think, I had to start my first year when I transferred out of Kuwait. I transferred into, I call it a naughty boy school. I know that sounds horrible, but
Well, they're out
it
there.
was a it was a military school for boys, grades 6 through 12. And I remember when I was in Kuwait, I'm like, I just want to get paid for my stress because we were making like 35,000 a year, which wasn't really a whole lot. And we had a tutor. If we wanted to travel, we tutored.
Yeah.
So we would get double our salary. I think we were making like 70 grand at these schools. But the problem was when we got down there, I didn't know it was so crazy. So yeah, I got paid for my stress all right. And just talking about what that looked like. I mean, there was no like these are boys coming from public schools that didn't know you had to ask permission to leave the room or raise your hand, or they came in tardy all the time and fighting amongst each other. And I remember one of them broke a cereal bowl over another one's head and smashed it, and it was made out of porcelain or whatever, because they lived there and it was a boarding school during the week. So it was just, and I think it was just a very different experience. So it was kind of like one of those things, what have I gotten myself into? And that whole year took up about 40 pages of my memoir because it was so crazy. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that whole year was just really something. And also just that decision about taking a leap over and what does it take to come back home to New York again, and how do you know when that's the right decision? And what happened to me once I came home. It's almost like the world opened up.
Yeah.
It's like a flower blossoming back up. It happened when I first went overseas,
And it
and then it
happened when you
happened
come
again
home.
once I came home. And I knew I was on the right track, but it did take a few months.
Because
It
I
did
can
take a
I can
while.
imagine you waking up on that first day when you arrive back in New York and you step foot outside and you're thinking, "Hang on, I'm in a completely different world."
Yeah, and I don't have to get back on that plane again in August. Every August. I remember in August, yeah, the last few years, I'd have to go back kicking and screaming. I just did not want to leave, the green, the nature, the community, my friends, my family. And I started thinking, why am I doing this? And I hung on for David, about 4 extra years than I think I wanted to.
Hmm.
And finally, I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, this
It was,
this is so.
yeah.
This has been a wonderful call. The insights to just how we should, I guess, navigate our way through life and give ourselves direction is just inspirational. Thank you so very much for sharing. Now,
Oh,
um,
thank you, Rick.
yes, no problems at all. I wonder, are you putting pen to paper again in the future?
Oh, I definitely, something else will come my way. There'll be another inner ding. There'll
Well,
be another inner ding, and then I'll, get inspired to do something. So I
I'm
haven't
also
decided yet, but
I'm also looking at the fact that you had been published on Dr. Susan Jeffers' website. Feel the fear
yes.
and do it anyway. Can you tell us a little bit about that part of the experience for you?
Yeah, she was a major influence on me when I was in my struggling in Qatar. I found her book on Amazon and I got the Kindle version of it. And she talked about how whole is your life. So she had these 9 squares, and
Hmm.
you put in how do you spend your time during the week? What are the things that really matter to you? And I looked at my squares, and I had David, work, working out and exercising at work, and friends from work. I'm like, oh, and going to the mall and getting pedicures. And I'm like, this just isn't fulfilling anymore, other than David. I'm like, what am I doing? So I knew that there were a lot of things, and I went overseas to pay off college loans and to travel and to see the world and to get away from the 10-year relationship that wasn't going anywhere. I kind of wanted a break from that, which I got.
Hmm.
But then by the end, like where's community? Where you feel invisible a lot of the time being in another country. And
Yeah.
that kind of hung on for all 14 years. So I wanted the family again. My parents were in their 70s. I wanted nature. I wanted pine trees. I wanted fall and the changing of the leaves. And I'm like,
Yes.
I need those things in my life again. My values are very different. So she got me to, really think about coming home. And then I contacted her husband and told him about, my book. And he's like, oh my God, I want to read it, because Susan's in there a lot, especially toward the end. And then he told me about her website, and he said, we do a Field of Fear and Do It Anyway story every month. You got to write it up and send it in. So I did. And then they kept it on there for 3 months. So I was really
Wow.
honored that they kept it on that long. Yeah.
Well, thank you
That was
so
so
much.
nice.
There is
Yeah.
just so much to unpack in this wonderful life journey that you're experiencing. I wonder, when people want to find you and they want to purchase this memoir, where are they going to find it?
Well, initially, I think the best place to start is on my Facebook author page. So it's Jennifer Benson author. So that would be a great start. And I have a website, Jennifer Benson author on GoDaddy. You
Hmm.
can find me on there. I think if you just Google me and put Jennifer Benson author, I think those things will come up. But my Facebook page and my GoDaddy page are probably my two that I use a lot. And then I use my Instagram. So that's JenBen123.
I love it.
So
Great
that's
name.
my Instagram. Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, I'm out there. So, and then once my book comes out, we're gonna, I'll have it on Amazon. But I think, leading up to it, I think those are the best places to, get the information about it and see what's going on with it, and,
Go from there.
keep my fingers crossed. Yeah.
It's going to be an
Yeah.
inspirational read, no doubt. Now, I'm going to make sure for everybody who's on the call with us today that you have links back to Jennifer. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook, Instagram, or her website. You will find links back to Jennifer no matter where you see this wonderful interview. And with that being said, Jennifer, I'd just like to stop and say thank you so very much for spending some time with me
Oh.
on the My Future Business Show today.
Rick, thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.